Stumps and Stories podcast with Nishad Pai Vaidya.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Stumps and Stories. And this podcast discovers all stories from the cricketing world. And it's not just about stories, but also about perspective, because the different angles give you a different sight. And I believe that cricket is such a sport that gives you so many different sides, and it's all about interpreting what you want the best. Now, having been a commentator and a presenter myself, I look at it one way, but having been a cricket nerd, it's also a different perspective. But today I've got someone who has traveled the world, has presented cricket from different venues. Now she's a very dear friend, and I must say my foodie partner as well. But to the more serious stuff, Tanvi Shah is someone who excelled at tennis at a very young age, and she played tennis at a very high level, and then suddenly decided to give up the sport and then moved seamlessly into the world of sports media and broadcasting, and is one of the leading presenters in this industry today. So it's my honor and a privilege to have her on my show. And generally, I'm not so formal or not so very clear with my language when I'm talking to her. But yes, we can't do that on camera now that we are live. So yes, Tanvi, welcome to Stumps and Stories.
Nishad, thank you so much. That introduction was amazing. I promise I didn't pay him to say all these amazing things about me. But I think those who know you know that you're incredible and you literally are an encyclopedia of everything. And I go to you for almost everything in terms of cricket, tennis, all the sporting knowledge that I need. I remember like literally texting you before I've gone live. Sometimes be like, what do you think? Do you think this question makes sense? Do you know? And like, yeah, thank you. Like, thank you for being that person, really.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, people say that, when I introduce my guests, they say, you say so many good things, but you know what? It is so natural because we call all these wonderful people such as yourself on the show. And, it's obviously because of the respect that everyone has earned, on the cricket field or off it as well. So, I actually want to start off at the very beginning because I know that you love tennis and you grew up playing
Yep.
tennis, excelled at that sport. What was that like playing sport and then moving into presenting? Can you just tell us a little bit about that? I know it's difficult to sum it up in just a few short words, but.
Yeah, it is incredibly tough, but of course I grew up a professional tennis player, and then um over a period in tennis, if sure you're like a top junior, you do well, you play for India, and that's obviously the greatest and highest honor I think for anyone to play for your country. You start playing junior grand slams, and then a little bit, I think when I started playing pros, I wasn't doing as well as I did in the juniors, and I think the transition was really hard for me. I started getting injured, and then getting on tennis is so competitive. Every week your world ranking changes, you're traveling, competing. It's a very lonely sport, it's hard. And so every time I just felt like it was more challenging, and I was unable to keep up. Like my body was breaking down. And the mistake was, when I was younger, I didn't focus as much on my fitness. Everyone said to me, you're a talented, athlete, but it wasn't like I was gifted physically. So I really had to put in a lot of work, which I struggled to like go to the gym. And I wasn't as, let's just say I didn't like it as much. I love to play and I just want to keep playing, but I never built my body to keep supporting me at the highest level. So it was going to break down. It did. And then, injury after injury, sitting out, mentally you're struggling a bit, your rankings dropping, when you're playing qualifying. It's not easy. And I think at one point I just had to be true to myself. And I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Sure, I can come back maybe, but do I really want to? Also, as tennis players or as professional athletes, you don't grow up, you don't have a childhood growing up. So a part of me was like, I crave that part of my life, and I want to have, I want to see what's on the other side, and I want to have a normal world that I live in. And of course, now I'm like, well, what was I thinking? I wish I could go back to playing tennis, but I mean, I love what I do. Of course, I'm very grateful. But yes, I miss it. So yeah, I think the transition was me getting injured, and then feeling like I had to be true to myself, and I was ready to do the next thing. So that's how I sort of moved into. But what most people don't know is I didn't become a presenter overnight. I actually started being like a sports agent. I started working in the sports business because to me, I always knew I wanted to be associated with sport because that's all I ever knew. And I was lucky and fortunate to be traveling and working with some of the biggest tennis players in the world. And I just got to learn so much, be on tour, see some of the best players, see them win Grand Slams, and just get a lot of knowledge early on when I was younger. And that sort of helped me realize how much opportunity there is in sport. And one fine day, I think they were looking for someone as a presenter for Chennai Open, and one thing led to another, and things just worked. And I was terrible when I started because nobody told me what live television was and how there's multiple people speaking in your ear, and I paused. The first time someone spoke to me, I paused and I could hear my director, like a producer, like screaming, saying, like, that's not for you. But like nobody trained me. So I was thrown into deep end, like very deep end. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity. I'm sure people laughed at me 100%. I think all I had at that point was like a perfect hairstylist, makeup artist, and stylist for my clothes. But I was so raw when it came. All I had was tennis knowledge, of course, and I think that's what they trusted in me. But I didn't have the broadcasting knowledge of how it works. So I think I was thrown into the deep end, which I'm so grateful because it only helped me like sort of see what's next and higher from there.
My next question to you was actually going to be, we all have this epiphany in life. You know what? This is what I want to do. I was going to
Yeah.
ask you, sports presenting, this is what I want to do. Was there an epiphany? But it looks like you just stumbled into it and it was by
Not at
accident.
all. I didn't even know it was a career. I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea how it worked. I knew nothing. All I knew is, oh, I get to be in sport. That's great. I get to like watch live sport. I absolutely love it. I mean, I miss it. You know what I mean? It's incredibly hard. I was just at the World Tennis League where I saw like some of the biggest and best tennis players of the world, top 10, like Medvedev and Rublev and Iga Swiatek and stuff, Grand Slam champions, and it made me realize how much I miss the sport. And I'm so grateful to everyone for these opportunities that I get to watch these people at the highest level, watch them compete, watch them train, watch that discipline, the consistency. I remember speaking to Rublev and he says, I said, what if your life was a movie? What would it be called? He said, a boring movie, because I wake up, I train, I go to the gym, I train, I go to bed. It's my everyday routine. But that's what makes you who you are, and that's why you're a champion.
Exactly. That was what I was also going to ask you, that you've had that training as an athlete, you have that discipline. I'm sure that would have helped you improve as a presenter after that nightmarish first experience, learning everything.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm so grateful for that opportunity and it was incredible. If anything, I feel bad that I don't think I was like, as prepared because obviously no one told me what it meant. And I'm so grateful that they trusted in me, but it was a great learning to understand that broadcasting is not, you just don't walk in and you're like, oh, you know what, I'll do live TV. No, it comes with a lot of work. It comes with a lot of preparation. It comes with a lot of discipline and learning. And I was very fortunate at that point. I think it was like Charu Sharma, like some of the biggest guys presenting it, and they were so kind to like help me out, explain to me how it works. It's a very competitive field, but I was lucky. I started off with working with like the legends of the sport, legendary athletes, interviewing them. So I really had no time to fail. You know what I mean? It was like from the get-go, I was put in positions where I had to prove myself constantly. And so even though I knew I wasn't prepared when I just started because no one told me what it was, I also knew the athlete in me was only going to get better. And I was not going to give up. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be the best I can be at this from my own lens. I can't say for other people if I'm good or not, right? But for me, I know I can keep getting better and I have to. And I have it in me because I've been in precious situations. I've been in situations where I'm down and I have to come back up. So
Yes, and that's exactly the kind of thought process that carried you forward. And how did cricket happen? Like, when was the first time you presented in cricket and the first tournament,
mm,
rather?
I'm actually trying to think. It's been a long time, so I can't say I'm very accurate with this. And obviously, I have no idea the exact time it happened. But I think
If
I did
I'd
some.
if I'd known you then, I would have remembered 100%.
Exactly, because you know everything. But I actually have no idea when it really started. But I think maybe I did maybe I did like one or two episodes on ESPN Cricket Info, something like that. But for like the entertainment side of things, I still remember. And then I just kept doing other things. I kept doing, you know, so Raj Naik, who's like Raj Naik and Sagri Naik, they're like my godparents, and I always say this. And Raj uncle used to always tell me that, listen, no work is big or small. You're starting out, you need to keep getting better. And I remember like I've done some entertainment stuff. I've done IFA, and then I did the entertainment show in cricket, like I said to you. I did a bunch of tennis things. So I kept doing more things to get better, to get better. So every time an opportunity came my way, I felt more and more prepared. I felt like probably the people who were also hiring me saw the progress in some way. And so I don't categorically remember what was the first thing I did, but maybe live broadcast for cricket, probably the T10 couple years ago. I don't remember, or maybe something else. But anyway, it's obviously been a while now, so I can't say what the first one was. But yeah, I think first are always special. But in my head, I just looked at it like I need to keep getting better at what I do. So I don't think I ever held like this was the first thing, so it's so special. This is the second thing. I think for me it was just like how much have I improved from the last time? How much ease do I have in what I'm doing?
And when you moved into cricket, like obviously
Yeah.
you got your tennis debut on at the back of all the knowledge you had, the know-how of the game.
Yes.
Preparing for cricket, how difficult or easy was that for you?
Not easy at all, I must say, because of course, I love watching sports, so I was always in tune with what was happening. But I cannot say I followed every single thing. So at that point, I was still following a lot more tennis. But once I got into cricket and I was there and I was watching it live, I was so interested and I was so like engulfed by the entire thing that I would then start following. I would read up more things. I would message friends, ask them. I had a bunch of friends would be like, let me tell you about this player, that player, because I can't say I knew a backstory about a lot of people. And now, of course, you're that person who I text and, get a lot of knowledge from. But I was fortunate enough that I had a couple of friends who'd be like, let me tell you about this player and let me tell you about that one. And they'll help you sort of understand where they're coming from. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's like as an athlete, I know what they're thinking. I know, what's going on in their head because it's similar. But if I have to talk technical stuff, I had to learn that. If I had to look at stats and hardcore numbers, I had to learn that. I had to do a lot more research. So I can't say it was easy at all. It was a lot of work. And I'm far from where I want to be in terms of my cricketing knowledge. But I'm getting there. I feel like every time I'm a student of life and I love to learn. So I feel like I see progress and I'm happy, but I'm not content in terms of my own knowledge. I want to get better at it.
Yes, and of course, what you have done is you managed to pick up the sport. You said that you understand the thought process. So, having been a former athlete, how much
Yes.
important is that? Like, because obviously the struggles may be similar, but then at the end of the day, tennis is an individual sport. Cricket is a team sport. Like, when I played cricket, what I really valued the most and what I really remember is the time I had with my teammates. And that is something I still cherish. Even when we get in touch, we don't remember what we've done, on the field,
True.
but we remember the times we spent. So a little bit about that, like obviously having been a tennis player, but looking at a team sport and the fact that you had that experience as an athlete.
The thing is, yes, an individual sport versus a team sport is very different, but I still think at the end of the day, the thought process, at least in my head, I think is very similar, that you want to do the best that you can do. You want to have the best performance. You will go out there only to win. It's the same mentality for everyone. Sure, in a team sport, you might have, support. You have your teammates on the bench. If something's going wrong, you have someone to like, be like, hey, you know what? Don't worry, we're going to get this. Individual sport, you're by yourself. You're battling it out there alone. But I still think just as athletes, thought process is very similar. I definitely feel like a team sport is a lot more fun, especially when I see it with cricket. I see it with like the tennis leagues and stuff. But I still think individual sport teaches you a lot, but it's so lonely out there. I think that's the tough part. But again, every sport teaches you something, and I think that's just how it is.
So you think maybe that made it maybe a little bit easier in a sense that you understood the thought process. So the kind of questions that you would put forth, the kind of responses you would have to their question, to their answers, in a sense, had that tinge of understanding of that what they're going through.
I think it definitely helps because I feel like I've been in certain positions that they have been in. The difference is, of course, I mean, some of them are absolute legends, and I unfortunately never got to that stage in my career. So complete respect, and it's amazing. But maybe at my very own level, I saw some things early on similar, but obviously different magnitude for them because of how much it matters. But yeah, it definitely helps because I feel like it's the same, pressure is pressure. Of course, the stakes are higher in different things, but pressure is pressure. So in that sense, I feel like, yes, it definitely has helped me. And it's helped me to just understand each person from a very human level. And at the same time, as an athlete as well, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does completely, because I think if
Yeah.
you understand that human side of a player, because somewhere athletes also want to be known as humans. That's what I believe. Is that something you believe as well?
100%, I was talking again to one of the top 10 tennis players the other day, and he said to me that, listen, just be yourself because everyone else is taken. And at the end of the day, being a good person trumps everything. It doesn't matter how many Grand Slams or anything you've won. Sure, it's great, but are you a good person? That's what you want to go to bed with, like at the end of the night, you want to go to your bed, like clear conscience and like knowing that you're a good person, you're kind, you're nice to people, you're there for people. And that's important. I think it's important. At the end of the day, relationships are what make us, at our core in some way. It's the love, respect, kindness. You never forget how someone made you feel. Doesn't matter if it's like someone who's serving you food, someone who's cleaning. Just how hard is it to greet someone with a smile or to ask them how's their day? It takes nothing.
Yes, that's right. And looking at what you have done at T10, and T10 is like a confluence. Why I like watching that format is, of course, it's the shortest format,
Yeah,
very entertaining. But you've got some of these established international stars, also some of these unknowns who want to make a name for themselves. So,
yeah.
say you are talking to one of those young guys who may not be so conversant, they aren't very open, but at the same time, you're talking to some established legends. How do you adjust between those two as a presenter?
I think it just comes to you, right? Because energy is one thing, and at the same time, again, like if I know someone, let's say, has a language barrier, or someone who's not giving you much, then there's not much you can do, to be honest. You still try to get the best you can from them. But if they're not giving you much and there's like one word answers and stuff, anyway, it doesn't make great TV. So then that the interview's ended, like it's cut short, versus someone who knows, who has been media trained, or who just is someone who's passionate about like telling their story or giving you more. It makes great television, and then it just comes to you naturally. So I feel like it's very in that moment. It's the energy. It's that what you're getting from the other person. You feel it, and you go basis that.
Yes, and recently, obviously you were one of the ICC's digital insiders. On this show, we
Yes.
had RK as well. He was one
That's
of the insiders.
awesome. I
Yeah.
saw him, I think, at the IPL auction, maybe like a couple days ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he was there. He was there. He did
Yes.
present over there. And, there was a lot of chat about what a digital insider does. And, for me personally, it was also a bit exciting because, when I was doing commentary from the studio on TV, I could see maybe you, RK,
Ah,
at
yeah,
the end of a
yeah,
game, just
around,
going
running
on,
around.
yeah, running around and
I
getting
mean,
your interviews. Yeah.
to be honest, I would say one of the best things that happened to me, one of my best experiences, and I'm so grateful to the ICC and everyone that was involved in sort of bringing me on board, and like really grateful to them to think that I was capable of it. And yeah, it's something that I'll never forget. It's something I'm going to take back. So many like just getting to work with some of the most incredible people, so much learning, and it's not easy. It's a World Cup. I was doing all India games, and it comes with responsibility, right? At the end of the day, and just the fact that they believed in me was big. Knowing that they believed in me, I feel like made me ready, even if I wasn't really ready initially. I feel like I was always ready. This was, I've never really chased something because it's always by God's grace has come to me. This was the first time, I think we had this conversation, Nishad, where I told you that, you know what, I feel like I'm ready for this World Cup. I feel like now I'm ready. Maybe the last one I wasn't ready. If they would have come to me or if I would have gone to anyone, I would have not been fair or true to me and to them. But this time I knew I was ready for the task. So when it actually happened, I was like, yeah, I know that it's going to be incredible. And I know it's something that I can like rise to the occasion for sure.
And you did, and obviously you had to travel
Thank
the length
you.
and breadth of the country, starting with Chennai,
Absolutely.
India, Australia, and you had those games like India, Australia, India, Pakistan in front of packed houses. What are your memories of those two games? Because it's obviously with the crowd, the attention, India winning,
Yeah.
India, Pakistan, especially in front of that 1 lakh plus crowd. That must have been something.
I'm someone who always thrives under pressure. And it's strange, but I do. Just being there, I cannot explain. Like I wish I could put into words what it meant, but the feeling, I don't think I don't think I felt like that before, you know? And you obviously can't be like a kid in a candy shop, but I pretty much was, because I was like, just the atmosphere was electric, just to be doing what I'm doing. And it's like a dream. And to be with these absolutely incredible like athletes and people that I work with at the ICC, everything just was like a dream. It's like I woke up one fine day and God was like, here, you worked hard. Now here's everything that you wanted, you know? And I think just being there, just seeing the pure emotion that people had towards these games, just seeing how people have traveled from all over the world. I had friends who came from London, from like all over, pretty much. The excitement, you know, and obviously for me, talking to the players, you know, being in the thick of it all, just incredible. Like, I mean, I wish I could go back over and over and over to all of them again.
And any of these interviews in this World Cup is something that you'll always remember. There were quite a few that you did, and it was on match day, non-match days. You used to do your previews as well.
Correct.
Any interview for you stands out? Any interaction that is something that's really memorable for you?
I think what stands out for me is just all the people that I worked with. Because to be honest, you know, it's like Ricky Ponting, Ian Bishop, you know, my producer Abhideep, like everyone, they were just incredibly like so kind and welcoming throughout. Like my bosses, Ben, Sid, Ajesh, like all of them, you know, I feel like everyone ensured that the environment and surroundings was such that everyone was bound to succeed and do well, you know? It's like we were almost like set up for the best. So for me, even doing pre-shows with Ricky Ponting, you know, Nasir Hussain, like I know I'm missing a bunch of names because I'm just like reliving all this in my head right
Yeah.
now while I'm talking to you. But all of them being so nice and so kind and always telling me like, Tanvi, don't worry, you're doing a great job. Tanvi, oh my God, that was amazing. You know, we watched your show. This show was great. I mean, these are legends, you know. The legends are what they do, the legends of sport. And to just have them there appreciating you, supporting you, you know, pushing you to be the best is incredible. And you know, I got to interview Sachin Tendulkar so many times. My first interview of the World Cup was with Sachin Tendulkar, and like, like that's incredible, right?
Of course, I mean, Sachin Tendulkar is someone who our generation obviously grew up idolizing and was inspired. So when you spoke to him, I think that was at Chennai, right? Just or it was at
No,
Ahmedabad
it
when
was
England, New Zealand.
Ahmedabad, the first, yes, the
Yeah.
first opener, yes.
Yeah. And what are your memories of that? Like, you're being told you're going to talk to Sachin, and there he is, walks in, takes his seat. I remember it was a seated interview. I
Yes,
watched
it
the whole
was, it
interview.
was.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was my first interview of the World Cup. And part of me, while I was walking in, I mean, we have a friend, you know, mutual friend, Bhavish Shah, who's also a key person in this entire thing, you know, who was like, T, you got this, you're going to do well. And she was there. And, you know, then obviously I think Sid accompanied me and maybe one or two other people. We went to that room and all I said to myself is, T, you know what you're doing. Now just, that's it. You're on. Come on. And so it was, everything was one take because we shoot everything as live. And so, and also thanks to, of course, like Mr. Tendulkar, who was like so sweet, so kind, and you know, everything just was like flowing so smoothly. It was, in my head I was like, this did not feel like it was my first thing, you know what I mean? I just felt at ease in some way, which otherwise I would have probably been rusty or nervous, but in some way I think it just all happened like it was meant to be, you know? And I know
And
probably
that's
people who end up watching this are going to be like, what does this mean? She sounds like, I don't know. But I was like, no, but sometimes it just is.
No, and that again comes back to the point where you said that you were ready. And
Yeah,
I think it just flows seamlessly then. It's not just about the Tendulkar interview. I saw some of the others as well, like with Nasser Hussain before the England game, where I think it was beautifully set up where you're walking, I think it was a market or somewhere in Lucknow. And then there was another one with Simon Dool before the India New Zealand
correct.
semi-final. All of these interviews, there was a lot of research. There was obviously a lot of homework done,
Lot of research,
a
lot of
lot of it
homework.
done. And on the spot as well, you've got to get out these questions. But then building that rapport with all your guests, that too is an art.
Yes. It's absolutely an art. Um, But I think, when you're at that stage, and especially like I'm nobody compared to all these absolute legends, you already know that the ease at which they sort of like settle in, or make you feel comfortable, or when you connect at that level, because you're just talking about this and you're sharing one goal and one passion, and you want the best output at the end of the day, right, for everyone. And they're so passionate when they're talking about these games, when they're talking about their experiences, when they're sharing their knowledge, that it just happens. It's not like anyone's really trying to be like best friends, or like, oh, I'm just chatting with them like 20 minutes before to make sure like we're okay when the show starts. Not at all. We come there like two professionals. We have a call time. We know what we're saying. They know what they want to talk about. I know what I want to talk about. And it just flows once it starts. So that's the beautiful part about it.
And learning about various facts, figures, bringing that into what you were talking, on camera. How how difficult was that? Because it was a lot of details. I really thought it was a lot of detail. And if you're saying it was all done in one take, then you would
Yes.
have had to memorize it, right?
Yes, of course, I had to memorize it. But I think, again, like I said, I would give full credit to my team. And I had some incredible producers, of course. And I had Abhideep a lot of India games with me. And I think the incredible part is I always had a run order ahead of time. And then I would be like, okay, let me just look at the key things that I want to talk about. And then I can say it the way I want to. But just some key terms, because I don't remember in which year what happened. I'll be honest. So if I read it once, then I can do my own research, and I look at those clips or things like that, then it helps me ease into it, because then it's not memorizing anymore. It's like I've seen it. Now it's in muscle memory in some way for me. So once it flows, I know what's happening.
Yes, and out of those interviews, any interview that really stood out for you, because I think it brings out the best emotions. Like 2011, India win the World Cup. Nasser Hussain gets Virat Kohli, and he says about Sachin Tendulkar, he's carried the burden of the nation for 21 years. It's about time we carried him on our
Yeah.
shoulders. Raw emotions. So, did you see that from the Australians at the time?
I actually feel in some way that they really manage their emotions very well, like
Hmm.
in all honesty. Because when I spoke to Pat Cummins, I feel like he just I couldn't see as much emotion. Of course, he was so happy and excited and elated and all of that. But in some way, they were so cool about everything, that went on, and how they managed to sort of like, take on India and the entire crowd and the nation and everything. And hats off to them. I think they just seeing Pat Cummins, the way he spoke in the interview and stuff, like, great. Like, that makes a great captain for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think just the way he conducted himself as a captain, a winning
True.
captain. The previous day in the press conference, I think he said it's going to be good to silence the 1 lakh plus crowd. And he lived up to it, actually.
True.
Yeah.
True, he did.
And
And like I said, I think again, it's sport, right? There's one person that wins, there's one that loses. In this case, one team wins, one team loses. And that's just how it is, right? It's pure battling it out on the field, and whatever happens, happens. It's like, may the best team win eventually. So I think in some way, like you said, he just showed what he and the team was capable of that day, and I guess they played well that day, and so it is what it is.
oh, 100%. I think the Australians, this will remain one of their finest World Cup wins. There are six of them, for crying out loud, and to say, oh, this is going to be one of the finer ones. But,
Yeah.
moving ahead and coming to this question where, I always wanted to ask people like you this, because it's a man's world essentially. How difficult has it been being a woman? Yes, you've played sport, but there are stereotypes. There are various other factors overcoming all that. Now, me being a male presenter, it's not something that I will see. It's not something that I may even understand.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you cope up with that? And maybe something that you can pass on to some young women who aspire to do what you're doing.
I always say this. Of course, it is like you mentioned, it is a man's sort of like sport or business, even in some way, right? But I think there's place for everyone, there's room for everyone. be true to yourself, be true to who you are. You're not always, nobody gets something in their lap or gifted. Everyone has to work for it. There's no substitute for hard work, ever, ever. Sure, people are like, oh, but someone got lucky. Like people told me, oh, you've had the most incredible year. It's been unbelievable. I'm like, sure, and I'm so grateful and I'm so blessed. But nobody sees the years of hard work, sacrifice, the years of me trying to get better at what I do. It doesn't magically appear. You got to put in the work, you got to put in the time. There's no shortcut to success ever. And success is very relative. Again, I don't know where I stand in any of it, but I'm saying in general. So I just feel like to a lot of girls, my thing is no work is big or small. Start doing smaller things. Start getting better at what you're doing because the bigger things are going to come. But you have to do your time. You can't jump because you will come back down real quick. You got to build slowly and gradually. And you got to because then even the other people are going to see that. They're going to notice that you're putting in the work. So they're going to respect you for that. I think that's important for people to respect you.
Now, one of the things that I tell my students is that if you're approaching a career in sport, then you've got to be like a sports person mentally. And I think what you've
Correct.
just said, it kind of reflects all that, isn't it? That try to get better every day, be true to yourself and work hard because, ultimately success is the tip of the iceberg. Nobody looks at what's
Absolutely.
underneath the surface.
No. And the thing is, everyone wants these quick results, especially the younger generation. It doesn't happen. Like I said, none of this happens overnight. None of it. You have to really put in your time. You have to do the work. You have to sacrifice a lot of things. I can tell you the amount of friends, weddings, birthday parties, things that I'm missing because I'm working. I miss some of family weddings and things like that. But the important thing is you have to have a goal, right? You have to have a purpose. If you know what you want, go after it. But at the same time, I'm a very content person. I've never chased anything. But it's because I also know in some way that I'm doing my time and when it has to happen, it'll happen. Me running, racing, chasing is just gonna make me more anxious. And there's enough things that are making me anxious enough. I don't need any more, you know what I mean? So I just feel like my only thing to younger people is that do your time, be patient. You have to be patient. Nothing is gonna happen overnight. Nothing.
I really like that answer, except for that one part where you said that, the younger generation, and it just hit that,
We're old,
we may
Nishant.
be,
I hate to break it to you. We're old.
yeah, we are a little bit older, I would say. It's
Okay,
again,
fair,
as you
fair,
said,
that part.
success is relative, age is also relative.
That is true.
No, but it's been so lovely to have you on the show and to talk
Thank
cricket,
you.
tennis, and all these wonderful things that you keep telling me even otherwise as I also continue to pursue whatever I want to. And to all youngsters out there, I would suggest, please do listen to this because it's not just from a presenter, but also from a sports person. So Tanvi, thank you so much for your time. And it's been
Thank you,
really
Nishad.
fantastic.
Oh my God. I mean, I hope I could really convey what I wanted to. But anyway, I think you really are a role model to a lot of people on how go after what you want, work hard, do your research, do your homework, and be a nice and good person. Let me tell you, number one thing, you got that, it trumps everything. Everything else in the world is going to come to you at some point. But just be a good person, I think. And I'm glad and I'm fortunate that I get to call you a friend and you've been there for me. And thank you so much for that. And of course, in our next chat, where we'll be talking about a food, where we're going to go to eat 5 seconds from now, I look forward to that.
Oh, 100%. And after such wonderful words, I don't know if there's anything more that I can add. I can just tell our listeners that please do subscribe to Stumps and Stories on Apple Podcasts,
Do it.
on Spotify, yes, and also on Instagram. Follow me at Nishat Paivaidya, at Tanvi Shah 91. She's there on Instagram. You can catch her right there. And we've also got Pod One on Instagram and Digital 2 Sports on YouTube.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Make sure you do everything that Nishad just told you to. And see you guys soon.